everyone. This is Facebook Live, and today we thought this would be a fun change of pace to just do something different since we're all in quarantine. So feel free to comment your questions, and we'll try to keep up with everyone here. But we did have some people submit questions beforehand, so we're just going to launch right in. We'll just get to as many as we can, and we'll try to wrap it up before it goes too long. So our first question comes from Emily, who is a mom of 3 under 3 from Kansas. And her question is, how do you balance being firm and consistent in your discipline while also showing grace? So,
good question. My first 3 were 3 under 3, and so I can empathize and identify with that. A newborn and a little baby like that is not somebody that you're going to discipline so much. You're just going to nudge them into a good schedule. And then you probably have a toddler, 2 toddlers. So it depends on if the 3-year-old is getting closer to 4. I always enjoy the 4-year-old that get a little bit more independent, but still want to be close to their moms, and there's a lot of chance for input that way. I guess the main thing I would say is keep a cheerful attitude yourself. It's easy in this kind of a circumstance when your world has been turned upside down a little bit to have the children feel that you're stressed out. So make sure you take those concerns to the Lord so that when you're interacting with your children, they'll just sense your love and your concern for them, and you're wanting them to grow in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Of course, little children under 3 don't understand that, so you're not going to quote that verse to them, but you just let them know that you love them and you want them to be successful. And the biggest thing will be to get them in a routine, a schedule that works with them. You can overlap some things and then do one-on-one with your 3-year-old or 2-year-old. Just fit that in. Try to plan it in such a way that the naps will give you a chance to rest and perhaps catch up on dishes and things like that. And little children love to help. And if your 3-year-old is going on 4, helping you load up plastics in the dishwasher or helping other ways, that's a delight for them. It's real life for them. It's kind of playing real life. So just keep positive. Find ways that you can have them near you while you're doing routine things and you're talking to them and telling them stories. Take time to play with them and enjoy them. These little ages pass pretty quickly, and you'll look back at them fondly in the future. A little bit busy right now, I understand, but just enjoy, learn to laugh at the fun things, learn to just be kind, even when you need to discipline or help deal with maybe some fussiness on their part. But that's my advice. I remember having to go out on the front yard. We lived on a busy street at that day and watching for Daddy to come home. He was working 2 jobs at that time, and I remember how eager I was to get another adult in the room for at least a few minutes. So just help your children to anticipate Dad, to enjoy when he's there.
okay, thanks, Mom. So we have another question that someone submitted earlier on Instagram, and the question is, what is the first thing you do if and when you find out jolting news that threatens to cause fear? And the second part of that question is, which attribute of God are you most appreciative of lately?
All right, those are wonderful questions. I'll start out with the attribute of God. I just so enjoy his faithfulness and his loving kindness. I just have proved that over and over. and through different seasons of life and during different difficulties. So just enjoy that. You can alphabetically go down and make a list of the attributes of God, and just as you're going to sleep, you can think of those things and kind of tuck your problems into those attributes as you pray over the whatever is happening. Sounds like there's been some jolting news in your life, and I'll pray for you after we've done this live stream. But know that God is there. He's close at hand, and you can talk to him and send a prayer and ask for wisdom. And all during this, we had a live stream with our church this morning, and the pastor talked about all the ways that we grow in our trust with the Lord and in our ability to comfort others when we're going through hardships. So this is not going to be wasted. It's going to make you more of a blessing to others in the future.
Good reminder. Okay, so feel free to comment your questions. We're keeping an eye here on the comment side of the screen, but we did have several people submit questions ahead of time, so we're just going to go through some of those. So here's more of a homeschooling question. Now that so many women are homeschooling that have never done it before, what are some practical suggestions of how to teach multiple grades simultaneously during the day?
All right, that's a question that has kind of a broad application. You might have teenagers, and you might have middle school and elementary, or kindergartners. So you'll have to adapt this answer. But if you can help the older ones, make sure that they're on track. Give them space to do their lessons if they were sent home with them. And a lot of schools are saying that they're probably not going to be back in session until the end of until next fall. That gives you a lot of leeway. Those teenagers and middle school children lots of times have real interest in things, and they don't just fit into the curriculum at hand. But this is a wonderful time to give them just a delight and a joy in learning. Sit down with them and say, what subject would you really like to learn more about? Or what skill would you like to develop? And work out a plan with them, and help them find resources either online or in the books around the house. If you know homeschoolers, many homeschoolers have a lot of resources and biographies and learning games. So you might reach out to somebody in your neighborhood and say, do you have any learning games or things and tell them what grade you're dealing with or what subjects. And that will be a help to you, and you might unite a unique friendship as a result. You might also, if you have an older child that you can really trust, help them find a way that they can be a help with the younger children, not all day, but just to give you a break sometime as you're cooking dinner, and other times of the day where you really need to be taking care of maybe a baby or a toddler. So just enlist them and praise them for their willingness. When I was bedridden for a month and a half because my water broke, and I was sent home from the hospital but told not to get out of bed except to use the restroom. And so I had Christy was one at that time, and Aaron was 2.5, I guess. And so we just learned to adapt, and I did that idea of just letting the older children pick a character quality or something that they could grow into. And Michelle, my older daughter, chose the character quality of encouragement, because she knew this was a hard time for her dad to have me down and him working and studying. So she would write him notes of encouragement. And then I would have the children learn some things. We had a nice bookshelf. I said, read some books or learn something and come and tell me all about it. And I had Christy could crawl up on the bed and I would read books to her, and same with Aaron. So, it turned out to be a very profitable time. The older children were helpful with the younger children when I needed them to be. And they were learning to just have a delight in learning new skills, learning new parts of history. So it wasn't a wasted time. I look back on that and thought, Lord, you have been so faithful during this time.
Okay. And another question is, so some parents are now working from home and trying to homeschool. So maybe if you can talk about if maybe the dad in the home is now working at home, how can you mother through that and help the kids understand the need for that space and helping your husband during that?
Yes. This pandemic is affecting so many parts of life. If you and your husband are working at home, I think you'll need to communicate with the boss or the people in charge of your department and say, you have these children at home that you need to be watching and helping with their schooling now unexpectedly, and work out a schedule that works for them and for you. And then your husband may want to do the same and say, I need to kind of step in and help some with our children's education now for this season. And so I'm sure that a lot of these companies will understand that and work with you. So that is a unique, different challenge. And just pray about it, pray with your husband about it, work out a schedule where he can maybe doing bedtime reading with the children while you're doing some of your work, and then you're leaving him not to be disturbed at all when he needs to do concentrated work. So every situation will be a little different. He might take the kids out on a walk while you are doing some necessary phone calls for your job. Since I can't address every situation, I would say just work it out with your husband, with your employer.
Okay. And a lot of schools and a lot of children are now doing online classes. So another question we had was, how do you navigate your kids through that and without having them have too much screen time during this season of learning at home? So how can you help them do their classes, but also, ideas for how to get them away from the screen too?
Yes, I would let them start out with their favorite subject and get them going in the morning, have them dressed. There's just something about being ready for the day that makes it easier to get your mind in gear. So have a good breakfast and let them be helpful with clearing the table, and then start out with some subjects. Now, some of the subjects, they can be self-motivated and do it on their own depending on their age. I would alternate the computer time with the children so that not everybody's on a computer at the same time, and then be available to help them. Now, I have to put in something here. Helping your children with homework is very different from traditional homeschooling. Because you haven't been in the classroom, you haven't heard what the teachers already said and how they've taught lessons. So don't be discouraged that somehow this is difficult. It isn't that homeschooling is like that. Homeschooling can be fun, and you can have a regular routine, and you've ordered the materials and you're on top of things. So just make the best of it. This is just at the most going to be probably 2 or 3 months. Hopefully by summer things will loosen up again. So make sure you have a really good bedtime, read biographies. And we found that even our older kids enjoyed having sitting together and listening as we read biographies together. So a lot that you can do just to inspire them to be good readers. And, a lot of things that can be taught with measurements, fractions. You use fractions while you're cooking, so you can do some teaching there with that. Make life a learning experience. And they'll need to do some of their classes if that's the expectation from the school, but do as much as you can to make life lessons.
Okay. Those are all the questions that we had submitted beforehand. Did you have any that you wanted to also share?
Well, I was thinking about maybe some of the single gals that are having to stay home. California has a pretty strict rules right now, and they want you to stay inside unless you're going to get food and gas. So I would say for the single gals, there's a way that you can use this. You might be working at home, and so, but you have a little bit of flexibility there. And I would say that you just try not to be introspective too much. Don't have fears and worries that somehow this is going to derail all your social life and all. Reach out to older relatives that maybe you haven't talked to for a while. That would mean the world to them, because most of them are kind of sequestered right now too, and it would mean a lot for them to know that you think about them. And then also I would say find ways that you can help. We found out from a friend that there's a desperate need at the Children's Hospital of face masks, and there's a pattern and materials. So she's going to deliver those to us, and we're going to be making hopefully about 50 face masks for the Children's Hospital. So there are ways that you can find to serve. Maybe there's an older neighbor in your neighborhood or a church member that you can do the shopping for, because it's a little harder right now. Older people are told as much as possible just to stay in. So calling, and if you're going to the store anyway, or if you're going to go by a restaurant that has takeout, you can be a real help and blessing to them during this time. And I think keep a journal. Find out, Chrissy and I both made a list of projects we would like to do at this time, and activities, and reaching out to others. So make a list and kind of chisel away at it. You'll feel you're making progress, and you won't be alone.
Yeah. If I could just add a little bit to that, just, this is such a golden time to have all this time, and this isn't going to happen again. And so instead of looking at it as, something that's going to delay marriage longer, or whatever the case is, if you're single, just look at it as a golden opportunity to hone those skills for marriage and homemaking and cooking, and what a gift from the Lord to have that. Yes. So try to shift your perspective, I guess, if you're feeling lonely and alone, and who knows, maybe all this alone time will spur more marriages on in the coming months. So that would be fun to see that happen. But
maybe those single guys hold up are going to feel like, boy, it'd be really nice to have somebody be married and have somebody to share this with.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? We've got about 16 people watching right now, mostly our family. Hi, everyone.
That's what you get when you have a big family.
Yeah.
So
let's see, I could try to find some more questions here. Just let me pull up okay, here's a question. With siblings home together much of the day, how do you encourage camaraderie, kindness, and patience within sibling relationships?
Okay, well, that's kind of a long-term project. If they're not used to being together, and if they're used to being with their peer group at school, there'll be a little bit of an adjustment. But just emphasize to them that their siblings are friends for life. You might move to another area, go to college someplace, but it's your siblings that you'll be connected with all your life, and develop those skills with them. We've talked in previous videos about how some of our older siblings invested a lot in the younger ones, and they've been lifelong friends as a result, had a big impact on them. So I would just encourage your kids, not demand it and not fuss at them, but just say this is a time to become good friends with your siblings.
Okay, and I just saw that we had more questions here on the post. Something to make other than ramen. I think that's the question.
Well, let me see. We have a recipe for an easy peasy bread that only takes about 20 minutes to put together, and then you let it rise and put it in the oven, and you get a nice loaf of French bread. And we made butterhorn rolls that you knead it, you mix it and knead it and put it in the refrigerator overnight, and the next day you roll it out and make crescent butterhorn rolls. So
and there's also a website we were using today that I think it's called Supercook or something, that you can go on and add all the ingredients that you have on hand, and it'll generate recipes from those ingredients. So that's kind of a fun way to have new ideas there also. Let's see. Oh, here's another question from Liz. Hi, Liz. We love and miss you. Hope you're doing well in Kansas. How do you put two babies to sleep in the same room? Did you ever have that problem?
I know your little ones are close in age, little boys, so that's kind of an interesting time. We would put the little one down and tell the older one, you don't have to sleep, but you have to lie in bed for half an hour. And usually they would fall asleep during that time. So just give them that leeway there. But once you have your timer in the kitchen go off, then you can check on him if he's not asleep. You can get them up. You don't want, you want to keep babies asleep. So reward the next one up, the little 1-year-old, that he gets a reward if he can be quiet so that his little brother can sleep.
Okay, and we have a question from Julie. Hi, Julie. She says, since my mom is an unbeliever, how can I show Christ to my mom that I don't live with?
All right. Now, if she's another state away or across the nation away, just calling and showing an interest and listening to her, and just showing her love and acceptance. You know, sometimes people, when they have a relative that is a Christian, and they might feel like that they're looked down on and not respected. So just show her respect. She's your mom. And also find ways to just be a help to her. You can order a meal if she's having to stay indoors from a local restaurant near her, and just help out with some things like that.
Okay. Erica asked, what questions have you already answered? Well, I think we covered a lot of ground in 20 minutes here. We talked about lots of things. I don't know if you want to recap. So let's see. Let me find it. I have another question on my text messages here. Why did you choose to homeschool?
Well, we were living in the northern part of Santa Barbara County, and our oldest son was ready to go into kindergarten, but at the Christian school, it was going to be free because my husband was a pastor there. They wanted kindergartners to go to school twice a week the semester before, just to kind of gear them up for being in a school environment. You know, the more we learned about that school, the more troubled we were about some of their policies. They were a Christian school, but they had some very loose policies as far as worldliness. And we were concerned about that. And we said, Lord, you know our son better than we do. And you know the school's better than we do. did. Our backyard bordered an elementary school, and we thought, well, we could be a witness and we can put them into kindergarten there. But as we heard the children walking home, the kindergartners from school, and just the meanness and the foul language, we were just knowing how impressionable God made children, because he wanted parents to have a chance to impress them with important attitudes. And so we were praying and not even thinking about homeschooling. And we prayed separately and together. The boys, we weren't involved telling the children about this. But out of the blue, my sister, who was living in Long Island, called me and said she heard a radio program about somebody that talked about teaching your children at home. And then we had another person from Northern California that contacted us with the same news. And we thought, oh, well, is this a coincidence, or is this God telling us what to do? And kindergarten is pretty easy. So we started then just thinking we were going to do kindergarten only. And then we enjoyed it so much that we went on to first grade. And pretty soon we were teaching all three. And the neighborhood children, as soon as they learned that our kids didn't have to go to school, they were learning at home, they would say, "You're so lucky," and so they give a lot of good press that way. And so we kept going, and then later we had 4 more close together. So it was a busy time when the 4 more came. I had 2 in elementary and 1 in middle school age. So it was a busy time, but I'm just so thankful that God in his faithfulness led us in that direction. And he was so kind to give me wisdom and help when I ever asked for it.
Okay. And the second part of that question is, did you homeschool all grades?
We didn't plan to at first. We just kind of started out with kindergarten, but as the years rolled by, we just continued. God opened up new opportunities to develop the teen years too, and then the children could be going to junior college and getting high school credit for it too, some of the regular courses. And so they did very well with that. They learned to learn, and they're all great readers. So every year we kind of just kept stepping up, and God made it work, and we were thankful for that.
Okay, and we have another question from Chanel, who said, I like the idea of reading autobiographies to the children. What were your favorite ones to read together?
Well, I made a list for somebody that when I mentioned that idea in an earlier video about reading biographies. And so there's a series, and somewhere there it's being reprinted. It's Childhood of Famous Americans. The nice thing about that is they really emphasized how this was a normal child, and what their interests were and how they grew up, and then followed him into an impactful life. So those were good. We had a lot of missionary biographies too, and that was fun for us to read. We read Little Children's Progress. It wasn't just a picture book, but it brought things down to where they could understand it. And oh my goodness, I think we read that through at least 3 or 4 times with the ages and stages of children that we had. And that was real helpful for them to understand the Christian life and some of the things and people that they would encounter along the way. So if you know homeschoolers, I know we had quite a collection of biographies. Those are all in storage where I can't get to them right now, but you can ask or go to, if you have a church library that lends out books, that could be a way. And then online, sometimes at eBay, you can get a whole set of biographies at a good price. So those are some sources. It just kind of puts everything in perspective. When you read about Adoniram Judson and Hudson Taylor and George Mueller and, so many missionaries and what they went through, it's real easy to take the ins and outs and unexpected things in life that come your way.
Mom and I still read together today in the
Yeah,
evening.
we do.
It's our little evening routine. It's a great way to end the day and have your heart and mind focused on the Lord. Okay. Oh. Here's another question. This is from my brother-in-law. Wants to know how you manage to homeschool and yet have well-socialized children. Maybe practical suggestions for the average homeschooling family. And actually, we got that question twice. How do you make sure that you,
Okay.
well-socialized children?
Thanks, Carlin.
Thanks for the compliment, Carlin.
Yeah, we were involved with other families that were homeschooling. We were involved with church people. The older children were stepping up and being an impact on the teens in the area. When they were in college, they just saw a need to do that. And then we had older people in our homes. For Thanksgiving, we would invite other people and usually have a house full. So we just found that living life, being, lots of times school kids are kind of not well socialized because they're just kind of used to being with their clique or their pals, the friends, and aren't used to reaching out to other people or spending time with people of different ages. So it ends up being a blessing if you really make that part of your mindset.
And I think we had such a big family, so we just had our built-in social group. So a lot of different personalities in a big family, and you learn to get along with everyone.
Yeah.
So, all right. Did you use co-ops, online teaching, or outside extracurricular activities for your kids?
Okay. We were after we'd been homeschooling for a little while, we joined a group at the south side of Santa Barbara, and they were forming a group of homeschoolers, and we were trying to figure out a name, and I told them maybe we could call them homesteaders because we're home instead of school. So we were part of that group, and then later we moved down to a ranch in Northridge and had there was a preschool yard there, and we invited Christian families in for park days, and then we made our own ISP program. That's an independent study program, and we had a credentialed teacher that could visit in the homes and do testing and do some elective classes. So yeah, there was a lot of socialism. Socialism. Oh dear, I'm gonna sound like Bernie Sanders. There was a lot of socializing. It's totally different. And yeah, just don't be afraid. In the early years, some homeschoolers were afraid to go out the door during school hours, but it's so common now that people don't bat an eye when they see kids out during school hours.
Do you have anything else you want to share, Mom?
No, just keep your chin up and be positive, and just keep a journal. You'll be able to look back at this time years from now and think about all that you learned as a result and how God supplied your needs.
And if you're having trouble being motivated and staying at home, one thing that I'm finding helpful is finding someone that can check in with you, keep you accountable, and with your goals and everything. So that is motivating if you're having trouble staying motivated and staying on track with all the extra time that we have. So yes. Thanks for watching. We made it to 34 minutes. So yeah, we'll post this this video will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you want to share it in future, we can do that, and you can go back through and revisit these tips. But thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope you're making the most of the quarantine. Any parting thoughts?
Well, just trust the Lord. keep a positive attitude, and love the people around you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.